I'm going to just kind of jump into this today. The talk is on the Anapanasati Sutta, which is the Buddha's teaching on the 16 steps of mindfulness of breathing. And there's a lot to cover. So I'm going to skip a lot of the preliminaries, all my jokes. And sorry. And just kind of get into it. I was first introduced to this teaching while on retreat. I'd never heard of it before, and I was really taken by it. Often in my meditation practice, tell me if you can relate, I'm not always sure what I'm doing. I don't know what are the signs, what should I be looking for? As the Buddha says, what is onward leading? And I don't often know. And so when here are these 16 steps, that this is literally a complete, one of, if not the only training of the Buddhas that is complete, that if this were the only thing you were ever introduced to doing, it would walk you from day one all the way to full awakening. And I was fascinated. The story goes that the Buddha had just finished the 3-month rain retreat that he did every year in Varanasi in northern India. And he was walking through the grounds, and there were literally hundreds, if not thousands, of monks gathered, and they were in different sized groups with senior monks teaching, and there were very famous monks there. And the Buddha was so taken by the level of attainment, the different levels of attainment. He started, as he always does, cataloging all of the different levels of attainment that there were people there that were fully enlightened. There were people who were the once returners, twice returners, all of these different levels of enlightenment. And then he started cataloging all of the different trainings that he was watching people do. And it was sort of out of that he then gave this spontaneous teaching on the 16 steps of mindfulness of breathing. There are 16 steps, and they're broken into 4 groups of 4, so 4 tetrads. Each one has a correlation that you can find in the Satipatthana Sutta with the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So the first one is concerned with the body. The second one is concerned with feeling tone. The third one is concerned with the mind. And the last set of 4 are concerned with the dhammas. So again, for sake of brevity, if anyone is new to this, whether here or watching this online, this can be overwhelming. We could do an entire course on these 16 steps. As a practice, for myself, what often happens is I'll begin at the beginning of these steps, which begins with mindfulness of the breath. And depending on what's going on, I sometimes will stay in that first tetrad. Like I don't move out of it because I'm in the hindrances. I've got too much restlessness. I don't have motivation, whatever it is. But what's cool about these 16 steps is you can always orient where you are, right? And so hold this lightly, just be curious about it, investigate it, and be flexible. Other times I'll sit down and for whatever reasons, conditions are such, I drop into a really deep meditative place. I don't have to start with the preliminaries. I can jump into like the second or third tetrad and just kind of pick up there. So this is yours, like with all of this stuff, we each have to find our way into it, our own investigation. The words that are used here, they're abstractions, right? And I'll get into this as we talk through it. So you're going to have to find, for yourself, what does this word actually mean? And I'll give you some of what I've, discovered. Okay, so the Buddha, feeling all fired up, says, and how practitioners is mindfulness of breathing in and out of great fruit now and of great benefit when cultivated and made much of. Here, practitioners, having gone to the wilderness, a foot of a tree, or an empty building, one sits down with legs crossed and body erect, establishing mindfulness to the forefront, always attentive. One breathes in with mindfulness and breathes out with mindfulness. So right here, the Buddha is talking about this movement, right? And this is on the physical level, right? We're moving to the foot of a tree. We're moving to an empty hut. And even when you're at home and you're moving through your house or your apartment, going towards wherever it is that you are going to sit in meditation, you can take that in as a symbolic retreat, that this is a moving away from the cares and the concerns of the world. They'll be there when you get back. And that you are moving away. So it's this physical moving away from the busyness of the world towards this place of seclusion, which we're now then going to turn to the focus of the mind and retreat even further, right? So it's always this process of ongoing renunciation, ongoing cessation, letting each thing go. We sit down and we bring mindfulness to the forefront, so we become mindful of the mind. What is being known here and now in the space of the knowing mind? We're bringing our attention to our attention. The first two steps read, breathing in long, one understands I breathe in long. Breathing out long, one understands I breathe out long. 2, breathing in short, one understands I breathe in short. Breathing out short, one understands I breathe out short. Now again, you can stay right here, right? When we first sit down, as I'm sure you're all well aware, right? We can sometimes take some very deep breaths to sort of start to gather ourselves, right? To slow the body down, slow the mind down. And because we're usually moving in from someplace, the body is craving that deeper oxygenation. But as we come into that place of stillness and we start to settle down, the body's demand for oxygen tends to diminish. And so the breath starts to slow down. And I said this earlier, I find it really helpful because I've been doing this for a while. So if you're new, stay with what I was going to say is, I find a really subtle place, the top of the lip, to experience the flow of the breath. Because it's really hard to perceive it there. And that really helps my mind get organized and focused pretty quickly. I've got to slow the body down in order to, and sort of quiet down in order to be able to perceive that. Now, if you're new to meditation or new to this practice, stay with one of the grosser, broader sensations like the breath at the back of the throat, the chest expansion, or in the belly, somewhere you can anchor it really clearly. This breath awareness becomes, I call it the metronome and the container for the rest of these steps. So you're going to see the breath is going to move away to the periphery. We're going to focus on other things, but it's never gone, right? So part of our attention is always going to be there watching or allowing the breath to sort of set the tempo, and also that in and outgoing flow to be the container for our investigation. Okay. And again, with all of this, right, I'm talking quickly because I got to get through all of this. But I really want to stress, we can't make this happen. You can't command the mind to do what you want. All we can do is incline it to where we're going. So relax, everyone, just relax. right away, as you get into this breathing, and you're invited right now, even though I'm talking about it expositionally, to look for the experience of what I'm talking in your own practice right now. Later this afternoon, when we do the guided meditation, we'll go through these 16 steps again, and I'll talk about it sort of more experientially and give more time. I won't be talking quite this fast. Sorry if I'm making anyone anxious, making me anxious. Right away, as you start to tune into the breathing, and you notice the breathing go from long to short, and for me, what short often is that there are long pauses between the exhalation and the inhalation. There's no sensation of air moving. I may still feel my diaphragm contract and my lungs sort of contracting, but then even that will stop. And there's just this space. And then the next breath will fire in or fire up. Right away, there's a feeling of pleasure. And it's the pleasure that arises from seclusion. Because right away, as we're refocusing the mind on these experiences of the breath and the body, there is a movement away from the conceptual mind. And right away, the body and the mind respond. There's a like, oh, this is cool. This feels good. It's nice to get a holiday from that brain. So the third step is, one trains experiencing the whole body, I shall breathe in. One trains experiencing the whole body, I shall breathe out. So we're invited here now to widen the aperture of the awareness from the breathing to now include all of the sensations of the body. Our temptation is typically to go to this point in the body, this point, this, place of tension. But what I'd encourage you to do instead is don't do that, and just take in the body as if it were itself an expression of the breath. So you're still focusing on the breath in and out, but you're folding into that the awareness of the totality of the body. Now, as you start to kind of check that out, that all of these tinglings, all of these sensations, all of these stuck places, this is the breath. Something really cool starts to happen. At least this has been in my practice. This is where this kind of synergy starts to happen, this unification, this kind of concentration. The mind starts to really kind of gather, hone in, and starts to go deep. Again, be curious. If it's not your experience, be curious about what you're experiencing. I'm just telling you what it's been like for me, having done this for a while. Fourth is one trains calming bodily activity or formations, I shall breathe in. One trains calming bodily formations or activity, I shall breathe out. Again, we can't force this, but as the breath and the body, or as the breath sort of deepens, becomes short, and this mind starts to gather, the arisings that you experience in the body start to quiet down. We're not making it happen. They just do it by virtue of where we are placing our attention. This is also a place where I get hung up a lot. And if this is not happening for me, it's typical that I am caught in one of the hindrances, one of the 5 hindrances. And so all I do here is I pause. And I privilege what is actually going on, right? Instead of where am I trying to get? And sometimes by just attending to where I'm getting distracted, what's going on? Is there restlessness? Is there sense desire going on? Am I frustrated? By attending to that, I can sort of come back. But I want to be really clear. There are plenty of times where I do this practice and I do not get past this. So again, that's the practice. Can you let go of your expectation and just stay wherever you need to be? But I'm going to now talk as if, we all got the green light and this is all sort of coming together. You're having this experience and we're going to keep moving on. So notice that it's like a deepening down. The body gets quiet. So now we're moving from the body into the second group of 4, the second tetrad, which is focused on feeling. And the first instruction is, one trains. Again, remember, this is a training, right? We're learning something. One trains, experiencing joy, I shall breathe in. One trains, experiencing joy, I shall breathe out. This is what got me hooked on this practice. Because I was tracking, when I first did it, and I was tracking the body stuff and quieting the body, now there's this word joy. I was baffled. I was like, what is joyful about this place that I'm in right now? Like, joy just seemed like such an abstraction. So I was challenged, like, okay, what does that mean? And again, because I think of joy as like da-da-da-da, and it does actually have that energy. It's the joy of seclusion, again. It's the joy of the space of distance growing from the conceptual mind and my constant attachment to it. When I look right at that, the moving away, the decreasing of holding on to experience, the fixity of the mind trying to make things, decide things, judge things, there's a feeling of movement. This is impermanence. I start to encounter like, oh wow, everything is moving, and there's this light, bright movement. This can go on regardless of what the content of the mind is. So sometimes the hindrances are there, but they're not strong enough to override this ability to be aware of things moving. And that elicits this feeling of joy. The more we incline the mind, and this can be so subtle, like don't sweat it. It can be more of an idea right now than an actual felt experience. But the more we incline our mind towards these onward leading signposts, the more they start to grow. So the more you look for joy, the more you start to experience joy. 6, one trains experiencing happiness, I shall breathe in. One trains experiencing happiness, I shall breathe out. And again, it's like, what is happiness? Like, what does that even, Mark Nunberg describes happiness as ease of heart, which is sukha. Biko Analio describes it that this bright, moving river of light joy passes, right? It too is impermanent, and it drops down. The stream pours into a great, vast lake of ease. And again, just as I say that, whether you can experience it or you're just imagining it, that's it. So this ease, this very deep sort of equanimity, it's more settled. There's a feeling of contentment. And when this is really cooking, there is a feeling of not wanting or needing anything. This is the heart awakening, going, oh, there really is nothing out there that can bring this feeling, this state in such a sustained way. when this is really going, it gets really hard to pick up the business of the mind. It's there, it's still going, but it's like a radio down the hall. This is a felt sense of deep equanimity, deep concentration. There's a sense of momentum to it. And again, just be curious. This is the happiness of dispassion, right? Of non-attachment to mental activity. 7, one trains, experiencing the mind. Oh my God. I just looked down, I have 10 minutes and we're on 7. I practiced this. I knew I had to land this plane. Oh well, we'll get where we get. One trains experiencing mental activity, I shall breathe in. One trains experiencing mental activity, I shall breathe out. So here, once we've got this anchor, kind of, we then turn the attention to the activity of the mind, right? Because we're in this place, we can now look at the activity of the mind without getting swept away by it. Analayo describes this as a parent, a loving parent at a playground watching children play. There's all kinds of drama going on, right? They're laughing, then somebody's upset, they're fighting, they're playing again, right? That's our thought, that's our thinking mind. But the parent watching doesn't get involved, right? She's there or he's there, they're there, just watching, stepping in if they need to, but not, right? There's this loving witnessing. That's what it's like to watch the mind. 8, one trains calming mental activity, I shall breathe in. One trains calming mental activity, I shall breathe out. When we observe mental activity without picking it up, it quiets down. Again, the anchor of the breath, the body, the stillness, the gathering of the mind acts as a ballast or a stay against the habit that wants to go off in thought. So it's a felt, again, my experience, there is a felt sense of a deep ease, a deep calm that is at a distance from the activity of the mind. At this point, again, it's like that feeling of dispassion. I see it, but I don't need it. And when you look at the activity of the mind from that place, the activity quiets down on its own. Analayo says, this is like the parent gathering the children, bringing them inside, and settling them down for a nap, right? Again, you create the conditions and the nap happens. You can't, maybe you've tried, or you get out and you go to sleep, doesn't work so well, right? But the kids will do it. Okay, third tetrad. So we've gone from the body to the feeling tones. Now we're going to look at the mind itself. And this is where things start to get really abstract. But it can be mapped. One trains experiencing the mind, I shall breathe in. One trains experiencing the mind, I shall breathe out. Look at the space of the mind. There's all of this activity going on, all of this sensation going on. Can you see the space upon which it's all unfolding? The mind is like a mirror. It just reflects whatever is being known, but it is not colored, it's not conditioned by anything that it is knowing. See if you can see that. If you get tight, if you're working too hard, it's closer. You can perceive it. The 5 aggregates of form, right? You're looking at me, this form, Jack, feeling, I like it right now, I don't like it, I'm indifferent or neutral. perception, right? You're hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. You can't shut that awareness off. Mental formations are coming, right? There's all kinds of, and there's consciousness. There's the awareness of being aware. And it is impersonal to you. We are so quick to make it, this is mine, this is my experience, these are my feelings. See if you can see that gap between, no, this is just phenomena being known in this field of awareness, this field of mind. 10, one trains the mind, pleasing the mind, I shall breathe in. One trains pleasing the mind, I shall breathe out. This makes me emotional. The space of the knowing mind is not indifferent. It is impersonal. We do not own it, but it is a living thing. And when we see it, it responds. It brightens. It glows. Move towards it, and it will move towards you. When you just see this space, it is beautiful. It is so beautiful because your life, no matter what is going on in it right now, is perfect. And nothing is perfect. Nothing is okay. The world is on fire. It is a mess. And right now, the beauty of the mind is seeing it all and is loving all of it. Can you see that? That is the nature of that space. When we see it, it is pleased. It is this deep feeling of happiness. And again, that sense of dispassion, that sense of impersonal nature arises. This human life is a mystery. None of us know what we are. We've got names for everything and descriptions, and we've got philosophies, to explain it. We've got even Buddhism, right? Which is cool, right? Because this makes no claim about anything. There's no deity involved here. It's just a practical approach to experience and being in the world, right? What is this thing called consciousness? How did it get inside this organism? And how is it possible that this organism can be aware, that consciousness can be aware of consciousness? Do you know, this is the mind liberated in this place. This is the mind becoming liberated from that craving for sense desire and the arising of self, of that personalization of everything. No. 11, one trains, concentrating the mind, I shall breathe in. One trains, concentrating the mind, I shall breathe out. The beauty of the mind passes away, and the attention becomes further gathered. So there's this kind of awe of the mind and the beauty, and it's, when you see it, it glows, it comes towards you, and then stay with it, and like everything else, it's going to pass, and it becomes something else. The mind becomes very clear in this place, and it starts to comprehend. It becomes clear that when it comprehends correctly, meaning with wisdom, the delusion of desire that there's something out there to get, and the self that needs to go get it and make it happen, that dissolves even more, right? So this is, again, one of those signs, those onward leading signs that the Buddha is saying, are you noticing this? If you're noticing this, go towards that. Keep going towards that. The mind can't get deceived again. Well, of course it can, and it will in the next, nanosecond. But when you're in this place, it's unshakable. 12, one trains, liberating or releasing the mind, I shall breathe in. One trains, liberating the mind, I shall breathe out. What that means now is that any remaining sense of identification or ownership of the space of the knowing mind is now gone. It's really quiet. Analayo is really forgiving in all of this. He says, even in these late stages of the 16 steps, it's very likely that there'll still be thinking going on, right? Don't feel like you have to nail this the first time out. You know, sometimes when I do these steps, when I first sit down and I'm just gathering the mind, you know, checking in with myself, I'll just really quickly move through all 16 steps. I'll recite them to myself just as a way and kind of hit the signpost, sort of like playing scales on the piano, just seeing where things are. Some days this can be a very profound practice. Other days, like I said, I won't get out of the first tetrad. Other days I'll get through all 16, but it won't be deep. Again, doesn't mean you can't do these later stages. It's all just pointing in the direction of where we're going. Okay, we're right at time. We've got last 4. Keep going, right? So sorry. So the last 4 is now the Dhamma. So the first is 13, one trains, observing impermanence, I shall breathe in. One trains, observing impermanence, I shall breathe out. The Dhamma, as I'm understanding it here, is that these are the laws of the conditional process. These are like impermanence. Everybody is kind of familiar with impermanence, but this is impermanence on another level, right? We're less concerned at this point with my experience. Jack, he's quieted, he's gone. There's the impersonal nature of mind, and through this mind, I'm now looking more at experience. It's more and more the experience of consciousness knowing consciousness. And here, with the emphasis on impermanence, all sense of self, all sense of there being a separate self is gone. And there's the sense of everything in this world out there is on fire. There is nothing to hold on to. It is all going. This too is liberation. This is moving towards groundlessness. The last 3 steps are characteristics. They're dhammas, but they are characteristics of this liberation. 14, one trains, observing dispassion, I shall breathe in. One trains, observing dispassion, I shall breathe out. People get tripped up on the word dispassion. They think it means to not care. That's indifference. This is the opposite of that. Dispassion is what arises when through our practice we see clearly, unshakably, the characteristics of existence. There is nothing out there that has the capacity to bring me lasting happiness. Everything is in a state of change. Everything is impermanent, and nothing belongs to me. There's nothing that I can hold on to. Analayo uses the example of a beautiful cloth that has been dyed in a very brilliant, beautiful, rich color. But from years and years of use, years and years of washing, which is our practice, the color fades. The dye runs out till there's no dye left, until the cloth itself disintegrates into nothing. That's this practice. So dispassion is not a move away from the world, but away from the cloth of thinking that we habitually superimpose on the world and that we then become entranced by. 15, one trains, observing cessation, I shall breathe in. One trains, observing that word, I shall breathe out. As our insight into impermanence becomes more constant and more refined, we start to privilege the awareness of the end of things. As I said before, right, this world of perception is on fire, and everything is going. Now, we could just as easily say, yeah, but impermanence is also eternal becoming, isn't it? Yes. As I said this morning, in our culture, we are obsessed with becoming. We are obsessed with newness, with new life, with babies being born, with youth, with living forever, with there never being an end to things. We are so addicted to that actually most people die while they're waiting for something else to begin. Literally, again, I don't want to go off on that, but so we're training ourselves to actually focus on the end of things. And what this starts to bring home is the felt sense of groundlessness, the reality that there is nothing to hold on to. Lastly, 16, one trains, observing letting go, relinquishment, I shall breathe in. One trains, observing letting go, I shall breathe out. This is where I've heard, this is consciousness, knowing consciousness with no sense of a self. This is absolute liberation from, in my case, this character known as Jack. This is life knowing life. And this is Nibbana. We've all glimpsed moments of this in awe, in moments of beauty, and even moments of terror, where the mind goes and there's just direct knowing. But this is the promise of the practice, that we can tilt the scales of perception in a way that we actually don't come back. Doesn't mean we're not still in the world, and we don't have our lives, and we don't have all the things that we're doing. We do. We're just in all of it from a very different place. Thank you. Good luck.